It was a quiet Tuesday morning in Los Angeles. The sky was soft with early sunlight, the streets calm, and traffic unusually light. Keanu Reeves rode alone on a black motorcycle, one he had customized himself. It was not a public appearance. No cameras followed him. He was just a man enjoying a ride to a place he loved, a small motorcycle dealership, tucked into the corner of a quiet block. His own dealership. He co-owned it with a few close friends. It wasn't flashy, no big signs, no red carpets, just clean chrome, polished floors, and the kind of silence that spoke louder than music. This was where Keanu felt most like himself, surrounded by machines, tools, and people who didn't care who he was in movies. They just knew he cared about bikes. He parked slowly, removed his helmet, and stepped inside. The familiar scent of oil and leather filled the air. A young worker behind the counter looked up, smiled, and nodded. Morning, Keanu. Morning, Liam. Keanu walked past rows of custom builds. Some were shiny and new, some old and half taken apart. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small slip of paper. Came to check out that vintage Norton we talked about, he said softly. Liam grinned. We just brought it out. Showroom floor. Want me to grab the keys? Keanu nodded, eyes still scanning the bikes. He wasn't in a rush. As he waited, something unexpected happened. Two customers walked into the dealership. One man was tall, with sunglasses and a designer jacket. The other was younger, maybe in his 20s, dressed casually, but with nervous energy in his steps. They didn't notice Keanu standing a few feet away. They were too busy talking. And then Keanu heard something that made him stop cold. The older man whispered, "You know who owns this place, right? Keanu Reeves. Bet he never comes here. Probably just lent his name to make it look cool." The younger man replied, "Yeah, I heard he just acts humble for the media. It's all part of his image." Keanu didn't move, not right away. He looked down at his hands, then at the floor. It wasn't the first time he'd heard things like that, but somehow, hearing it in his own space, where he had poured hours of sweat and care, it hit different. He could have turned around and said something, introduced himself, corrected them, but he did in single quotes. Instead, he walked quietly to the back corner, where the vintage Norton was displayed. He touched the seat gently, ran his fingers along the edge of the fuel tank, and let the moment pass. Liam came back holding the keys. Ready? Keanu nodded, trying to keep his thoughts calm, but inside, something had shifted. Because sometimes, even when the world respects you, it still doesn't see you, and in that moment, he didn't feel like a celebrity. He felt invisible. He kept his head down as he tested the bike. The engine rumbled with a steady rhythm. It felt good beneath him, like a memory of younger days, but the words still echoed in his mind. He just acts humble for the media. He rode the bike around the back lot, then parked, stepped off, and handed the keys back to Liam. "She's beautiful," he said softly. "Wrap it up for me." Liam smiled. "Wide, you're buying it?" Keanu nodded. "Yeah, it's time." He didn't say when it was time for. Not yet. He glanced once more at the two customers, who were now chatting with a different sales rep, still unaware that the man they had been mocking was only a few feet away. But something else happened next. As Keanu was about to leave, the younger man's phone rang. He stepped outside to take the call, leaving his older friend inside. Keanu walked past him, offering only a slight glance. The older man finally recognized him. His eyes widened. His mouth opened slightly. But Keanu just smiled, nodded gently, and walked on. No anger, no sarcasm, just quiet. Outside, he paused for a moment. Then something unexpected happened again. The younger man, still on the phone, broke down in tears. Keanu froze, not because of what the man had said earlier, but because of the way he was crying. Not loud, not dramatic, just broken. The call ended. The young man wiped his face, turned and saw Keanu standing there. Their eyes met, and everything changed. The young man stood frozen, his face still wet with tears, his phone shaking in his hand. He looked like someone who had just heard the kind of news that turns your whole life upside down. And now, standing in front of him was Keanu Reeves, the same man he had just spoken about inside the shop. But Keanu didn't say anything. He didn't bring up the comment. He didn't frown. He didn't act hurt. He just looked at him with the same quiet eyes, the same patient calm. "Are you okay?" Keanu asked gently. The young man swallowed hard and looked down. I didn't know you were standing there. I'm sorry. I didn't mean what I said. I mean, I don't know. I just said something dumb." Keanu didn't respond right away. He looked out at the street. Cars passed slowly. A bird landed on the edge of the sign above the shop. "It's okay," he finally said. "We all say things we don't really mean, especially when we're hurting." The young man nodded, then whispered, "My mom just called. My dad had a stroke. He's in the hospital." Keanu's face softened even more. He stepped closer, but not too close. He didn't want to overwhelm him. He just stood beside him like an anchor in a storm. "Do you want to sit for a minute?" Keanu asked. The young man nodded. They sat down on a low brick wall just outside the shop. The sun was climbing slowly, casting a soft glow over the sidewalk. "My dad raised me alone," the man said after a long silence. "He was a mechanic, taught me everything. We used to watch your movies together. He'd always say, 'That guy's different. He's one of the good ones.'" Keanu smiled gently. "Sounds like a strong man." The young man nodded, biting his lip. "I said something stupid in there. I didn't realize you actually came to this place. I just thought, you were a movie guy." Keanu tilted his head slightly. "And what are you?" The young man blinked. "What do you mean? Are you just a customer, or are you a son who loves his father?" He looked down. "I guess I'm a son." "Then we're not so different," Keanu said softly. For a moment, the young man didn't speak. Then he looked up. "My name's Daniel." Keanu nodded. "I'm Keanu." Daniel laughed nervously. "Yeah, I know." Keanu smiled. Just then, the older man, Daniel's friend, stepped out from the shop. He saw them sitting together and walked over quickly. "Hey, Daniel, is everything okay? I was looking for you." He stopped mid-sentence when he saw Keanu's face up close. His eyes widened. "Oh God, it's you?" Look, man, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean." Keanu raised a hand gently. "It's okay." The man paused, unsure. Double quotes seriously. Keanu said, "You don't have to explain. I've heard worse." The older man nodded slowly, then placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "We should probably head to the hospital." Keanu turned to Daniel. "Do you want me to call ahead to someone? I know people at the hospital nearby. I can make sure someone checks on your dad." Daniel's mouth opened slightly. "You do that, of course, but you don't even know me." Keanu looked at him and said something that made Daniel's eyes water again. "We don't have to know someone to care." Those words hung in the air like a quiet song. Keanu reached for his phone, made a few quick calls, and arranged for someone to meet Daniel's father at the hospital. It wasn't about power. It wasn't about fame. It was about being kind when the moment called for it. When Daniel stood up to leave, he looked at Keanu with a new kind of respect, not the kind given to actors or stars, but the kind given to people who show up when it matters. "Thank you," Daniel said, "for listening." Keanu nodded. "Anytime." As they left, Keanu stayed seated on the low wall. He watched the cars pass. He thought about his own father, about the moments he never got to fix, the conversations that ended too soon, the hugs that never came, and for a moment, he felt the weight of his own story pressing against his chest. But then something unexpected happened again. A young boy, maybe 12 years old, rode past on a bicycle. He looked at Keanu and slowed down. "Are you Keanu Reeves?" he asked. Keanu smiled. "Yeah." Double quotes. The boy grinned. "You were awesome in that movie where you saved the dog." Keanu laughed softly. "Thank you." The boy started pedaling again, but then stopped. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small, wrinkled drawing. "Here," he said, handing it to Keanu. "I drew this. It's a motorcycle. I wanted to build one like it when I grow up." Keanu took the drawing with care. "This is amazing. Keep this dream. Don't let anyone take it away." The boy nodded and rode off, waving. Keanu held the drawing for a long time, and in that moment, something inside him healed just a little, because sometimes Even when the world misunderstands you, a small act of honesty can bring everything back into focus. The rest of the day moved slowly. Keanu stayed at the dealership long after the morning rush passed. He helped Liam organize parts in the back room, dusted off old helmets, and even repaired a loose handlebar on a customer's bike. He didn't have to, but for him, this place was never about business. It was about grounding, about remembering where he came from. Every part had a story, every bike had a rider, and every rider carried something unseen: loss, hope, love, regret. He respected that, because he had carried those same things. As he stood by the shop's glass front, looking out at the street, his phone buzzed in his jacket pocket. It was a text from Daniel. He's stable now. They're watching him overnight. Thank you again. You didn't have to care, but you did. Keanu smiled faintly, then typed a reply: you're welcome. Take care of him and yourself. He slid the phone back into his pocket and turned to head out. But just as he reached the door, Liam called out, "Hey Keanu, before you go, there's someone asking for you. She's waiting outside." Keanu paused. Who? Liam shrugged. She didn't give a name. Said she wasn't sure if he'd remember her. Keanu raised an eyebrow, then stepped outside into the sunlight. A woman stood near the far corner of the lot. She looked to be in her late 30s, wearing a faded green dress and holding a small envelope. Her hair was tied back loosely, and her expression was nervous, as if she had almost talked herself out of coming. When she saw Keanu, she smiled softly. "Hi," she said. He looked at her closely. Her face stirred something in his memory, but it wasn't immediate. "Not yet." "Hi," he said gently. "Have we met?" She nodded. "A long time ago. Maybe 25 years. You probably don't remember." Keanu stepped closer, his brow furrowed. "My name's Leah," she said. "I worked in the diner near your first apartment. You used to come in late. Always sat in the same booth. Ordered grilled cheese and black coffee. You barely talked, and then it clicked. Keanu single quotes S. Eyes widened. "Leah, from the Blue Moon Cafe." She laughed, a little surprised. "You do remember." Keanu smiled. "You were kind. Always left me extra fries when you thought I looked tired." Leah blushed. "You always looked tired." They both chuckled. Keanu gestured to the bench just outside the shop. "Wanna sit?" They sat side by side, the breeze light around them. "I came here today," Leah said, holding out the envelope, "because I saw your name on the shop window last week, and something inside me said, I should finally say thank you." Keanu took the envelope but didn't open it. "What for?" he asked. "For saving my life," she said quietly. Keanu looked at her, confused. "I don't understand." "One night, back at the diner," Leah said, eyes looking far away. "I was working a double shift. It was raining. My boyfriend had just left me. I was broke, angry, scared. I served you your usual. And you looked at me and said something simple." Keanu listened closely. "You said, I hope you get to rest soon. The world's been unfair to you, but you're still standing. That's something." Keanu blinked. "I said that." She nodded. "And that night, after my shift, I went home and threw away the pills." A heavy silence fell. Keanu leaned forward slowly. "Leah, I didn't know. I'm so sorry you were in that place." "You don't have to be sorry," she said. "You were the only person who saw me." Just a sentence, but it changed something. "And now, I have a son. He's 10. He likes bikes." She smiled gently. "He thinks you're a superhero." Keanu smiled too, but his eyes shimmered with emotion. "You are a superhero," she said. "Not because of movies, but because you pay attention." He opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph of a small boy wearing a motorcycle jacket, posing proudly on a tiny bike. On the back, she had written, "His name is Max. Thank you for helping me stay alive long enough to meet him." Keanu held the photo for a long time. Then he carefully placed it inside his jacket. "Can I keep this?" he asked. "Of course," Leah replied. They stood up slowly. "You don't have to say anything," she added. But Keanu did say something. He said, "I'm glad you came today. I needed this more than you know." Leah smiled. "Sometimes the world brings people back at just the right moment." They said goodbye. As Keanu watched her walk away, he felt something shift inside him again. Something deep. Because he had come here just to buy a bike, but life had other plans, and once again, kindness given long ago without expectation had returned to him years later, in the form of a life saved. Later that evening, the dealership closed its doors. Liam waved goodbye and headed home, leaving Keanu alone inside. The lights were dim, but Keanu didn't mind. He liked the quiet hum of the building when it slept. He sat in the back room where old helmets hung like memories, and worn tools told stories of all the hands that had used them. He pulled out the photograph Leah had given him. Max's smile stared back at him, bright, full of life. It was strange, Keanu thought. Sometimes you say something without thinking, and years later, that one sentence saves someone's world. He leaned back and closed his eyes. Old memories came like a wave. Long nights in cheap apartments, rejection letters on the floor, lonely dinners, the nights he almost gave up, and then moments like that night at the diner. Small, almost forgotten, but full of meaning for someone else. And now, to people in one day, had reminded him why the smallest kindness matters. But the day wasn't done yet. A knock at the front door pulled him from his thoughts. Keanu stood up, surprised. It was almost 9. No one ever came this late. He walked over and unlocked the door. Outside stood a woman in her early 60s. Her gray hair was pulled into a bun, and she wore a simple cardigan and jeans. Her eyes were tired, but kind. "I'm sorry to come so late," she said softly. "Are you still open?" Keanu smiled gently. "We're closed, technically, but I'm still here. What can I help you with?" She stepped inside, looking around slowly. "I used to come here with my husband," she said. "He loved motorcycles, built one from scratch once. He passed away last year." Keanu nodded, his voice calm. "I'm sorry." "Thank you," she replied. "Today would have been our 40th anniversary. I thought I'd walk by, maybe look through the window, but then I saw the light on." She reached into her purse and pulled out a tiny box. Inside was a keychain shaped like a miniature motorcycle. "He gave me this on our first date," she said. "Told me one day, I'll take you around the world on 2 wheels. He never did, but we had our own little rides." Keanu looked at the keychain with care. "It's beautiful. I want to leave it here," she said. "In your shop. It feels right." Keanu thought for a second, then walked her to the far corner of the dealership. There, he showed her a glass case where they kept special items, gifts from customers, photos from past rides, and little tokens that told stories. "We can put it here," he said. The woman smiled through tears. "Thank you." They stood there, in silence. Then she asked, "Why are you here so late?" Keanu thought about it. "Today's been full. I needed to sit with it all. Sometimes the world speaks softly, and you have to be quiet enough to hear it." She looked at him closely. "You're not just the actor, are you?" Keanu smiled. "I'm just a man who likes bikes." She chuckled. "My husband would have liked you." They said goodbye, and she left the keychain in the case. Keanu locked the doors again and turned off most of the lights. He stood in the dark for a moment, surrounded by engines and chrome, and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, that wholeness. But fate wasn't quite done with him yet. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a voicemail. He pressed play. It was Daniel. "Hi Keanu, it's me. I know this is weird, but my dad woke up tonight. He asked about me, and then, out of nowhere, he asked about you." I told him the story, about you being there at the dealership, helping me stay calm, and he got really quiet. Then he said, he used to know you. Keanu sat down slowly, eyebrows narrowing. Daniel's voice continued. "He said you were friends when you were teenagers, and that something happened between you two. He didn't say what, but now he wants to see you." Keanu's heart thudded. He said his name is Thomas Lang. Keanu froze. That name. It was like hearing a door creak open that had been shut for years. Thomas Lang. His first real friend. The boy who taught him how to fix a chain, who raced him down hills, who shared food when Keanu had none. And also, the boy he hadn't spoken to in over 30 years, because one day, Thomas just disappeared. No note, No goodbye. Just gone. Keanu stood up slowly, the past crashing over him like a wave. You okay? Daniel's message ended. I'll send you the hospital info if you want. No pressure. Keanu sat back down, eyes staring at nothing. The past he thought he had buried was calling him now, and the choice was his. To face it or walk away. He looked at the picture of Max again, and then he whispered, maybe it's time to finish some stories. The next morning, Keanu sat alone in his kitchen, a mug of cold coffee untouched in front of him. The city was just waking up, but his thoughts had been racing all night. The name Thomas Lang played on repeat in his mind, like an old song he didn't want to hear, but couldn't turn off. They had been best friends once, before the movies, before the fame, just two boys in worn-out shoes and scraped-up knees, dreaming about building bikes and escaping their broken homes. But something had happened, something that left silence between them for over 30 years. Keanu didn't know what Thomas had told his son, Daniel, didn't know if there was anger, blame, regret. All he knew was that Daniel's voice had been sincere, and that Thomas wanted to see him. He got on his bike, his new Norton, and rode toward the hospital. Not fast, not slow, just steady. His heart beat with every mile, louder than the engine. When he arrived, a nurse led him through quiet halls until they reached room 113. She opened the door gently and stepped aside. Keanu walked in. The room was dim. Thomas lay in bed, tubes and wires connected to his arms, oxygen hissing softly beside him. But his eyes were open, and when he saw Keanu, those eyes filled with something heavy: surprise, sorrow, and something else, peace. Keanu stood by the door for a moment. Hi, Tom. Thomas smiled weakly. Still hate being called that. Keanu chuckled. Some things never change, but some do, Thomas said, his voice rough, like me. I vanished on you, and you became the guy on movie posters. Keanu stepped closer and pulled a chair beside the bed. I didn't come here as a movie guy. I came as your friend. Thomas nodded slowly. You're still him. I can see it. The quiet eyes, the stubborn heart. They sat in silence for a while. Neither rushed it. Both knew some wounds take time to unwrap. Finally, Thomas spoke again. Do you remember the night I disappeared? Keanu nodded. Yeah, you were supposed to come over. We were gonna work on your dad's old Honda. I never showed. Thomas said. Keanu's single quotes S voice dropped. I waited. Then I waited the next day too. Then I figured you didn't want to see me anymore. Thomas shook his head slowly. I didn't leave because of you. Keanu looked confused. Then why, Thomas? Closed his eyes for a second. My dad hit me that night. Hard. I'd gotten into trouble at school. He smashed my face into the wall. And when I looked in the mirror, I thought, if Keanu sees me like this, he'll feel sorry for me. And I didn't want that. I didn't want to be a burden. So I left. Keanu's chest tightened. You could have told me. I wouldn't have judged you. I know that now, Thomas whispered. But back then, all I felt was shame. I thought leaving was protecting you. I didn't realize it was breaking you too. Keanu's voice cracked. I looked for you, Tom. I went to your house. I asked around. Thomas nodded. I know. I heard. I just couldn't come back. And then time passed. Too much time. The two men sat in a silence deeper than words. The kind of silence that only exists between two people who have lost and found each other again. Daniel's a good kid, Keanu said. He is, Thomas replied. Strong, smarter than me. I told him not to contact you, but he did it anyway. I'm glad he did. Thomas reached over with a shaky hand and placed it over Keanu's. I'm sorry, for the years, for the silence. Keanu gripped his hand gently. You're here now. That's what matters. Tears welled in Thomas's eyes. I thought I'd die with regret, he said. Keanu shook his head. You don't have to. They sat together for hours talking about the past, about bikes, about the people they once were, and the men they became, before leaving. Keanu took something out of his jacket pocket. It was the drawing from the boy the day before Max's hand-drawn motorcycle. A kid gave me this yesterday, he said. His mom says I helped save her years ago, without knowing. I thought I was coming here to heal her story, but maybe this was really about healing ours. Thomas looked at the drawing, smiled through tears, and nodded. "Thank you, Keanu, for everything. For coming." Keanu stood and leaned in, placing a hand on his friend's shoulder. "You still owe me a ride," he said. Thomas laughed weakly. "Maybe in the next life." Keanu walked out of the room, his heart both heavy and light. Outside, the air was cooler, softer. The sky above was turning gold with evening. And then he saw Daniel, sitting on a bench, waiting. Keanu walked up and sat beside him. "He told me everything," Daniel said. Keanu nodded. "He's brave. You both are." Daniel said, "I think seeing you gave him peace." Keanu looked ahead. "Sometimes we don't need to fix everything. We just need to show up." Daniel leaned back and whispered, "Thanks for showing up." They sat in silence, just like Keanu had done with Thomas earlier. Not trying to rush the moment. Just being present. Because sometimes presence is the most powerful thing we can give. A week later, Thomas Lang passed away peacefully in his sleep. He had spent his last few days surrounded by people who loved him, his son, the nurses who cared, and a friend he thought he'd lost forever. There were no grand speeches, no final movie scene moments, just calm and quiet and forgiveness. Keanu stood at the back of the small memorial service. It was held under a tree in a public park, just like Thomas would have wanted. Simple, honest, no spotlight. Daniel spoke a few words, and then invited anyone who knew his father to share a memory. Keanu didn't go up. He didn't need to. Instead, after the service ended, he quietly placed a small object by the base of the tree, a vintage motorcycle Kane Thomas used to carry when they were teens. Keanu had kept it all these years, buried in a box, never quite ready to let it go. "Ride free, Tom," he whispered. "We'll catch up someday." That night, Keanu returned to the dealership. He walked through the quiet building, flipping on the lights one by one. The glass reflected his figure, older, wiser, but still that same quiet soul who once dreamed beside his best friend. He stepped into the back room and opened the glass case, the one where they kept meaningful tokens from riders who had passed through. He took the drawing from Max, the photo Leah had given him, and the motorcycle Kane. Then he added something new, a small card, handwritten. On it, he wrote, "This place is not just about bikes, it's about stories. Stories of loss, stories of hope, stories of people who still believe in showing up, even when it's hard. If you're here, know this: you are not invisible, you matter." The next day, he arrived early and made one change to the front window. He removed his name from the signage. No more Reeves Motors, just one simple word: presence. No bold fonts, no glowing lights, just a quiet truth. A few customers asked about the change. Keanu would simply smile and say, "I think it fits better." And it did, because something had shifted, not just in the store, but in him. He wasn't chasing anything anymore. Not attention, not validation, not approval. He had found peace in presence. Then, one sunny afternoon, he saw Daniel again. Daniel had returned to the dealership not as a customer, but as a volunteer. "I want to learn," he said, "about bikes, about people, about what this place really means." Keanu nodded. "I'll teach you what I know." They started slowly, cleaning tools, organizing parts, fixing little things. Daniel was a quick learner, and more than that, he had the heart for it. One day, while working on a bike together, Daniel looked at Keanu and asked, "Do you think my dad ever forgave himself?" Keanu paused, then said, "I think he did." "Because you forgave him." Daniel looked down, then back up. "Do you think you've forgiven yourself?" Keanu looked away, the question hanging in the air. Then, with a faint smile, he said, "I'm getting there." Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The dealership grew not in size, but in soul. More people started coming, not just to buy bikes, but to feel seen. Some came to share a memory, some came to cry, others just needed silence. And that was okay. Keanu made sure no one ever felt rushed, ever felt judged. He would sit beside people quietly, just like he did with Thomas. He would listen, nod, and sometimes share stories of his own, about mistakes, about grief, about how healing takes time. One day, a teenage girl came into the shop with her mother. She had been through a rough year, struggling in silence. Keanu noticed her looking at the wall of tokens and drawings. That's from a boy named Max. He told her he wanted to build a bike one day. Did he ever build it? She asked. Not yet. Keanu smiled. But he's closer than he thinks. She looked at the items again and whispered, I want to leave something too. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small bracelet. It was woven with blue and white thread. My brother gave me this before he passed, she said. I think he would have liked it here. Keanu took the bracelet and placed it gently inside the glass case, beside the others. Thank you, he said. This place is better because of you. As she left, her mother turned back and mouthed a quiet thank you to Keanu. He nodded, because he understood. He always had. And in that simple moment, standing in a quiet shop filled with stories, he felt it again, the reason he stayed, the reason he listened, the reason he never stopped believing in kindness. Not because it made headlines, not because it was expected, but because somewhere, years ago, he had once been saved by a kind word. And now, all these years later, he was simply passing it on. And as the sun set over the city, casting a golden glow over the glass windows of presents, Keanu Reeves stood alone by the door, watching the street, listening to the quiet, and waiting for the next person who needed to be reminded, you matter, you're not alone. And yes, your story is still being written.